All right. Good morning, I'm Jonathan Butz. We're here to have a conversation about industry trends in healthcare and the importance of financial excellence and automated provisioning to ensure IT's relevance in a changing environment. We're going to talk first about some themes that we're seeing in the healthcare industry as a whole. We're seeing a lot of revenue pressure as we talk about Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement declines. And in 2013, we saw a lot of healthcare revenue declines for the first time in the history of healthcare. So that's gotten a lot of attention and put some focus on the need to improve clinical efficiency from a number of perspectives to make better use of the capital assets employed, both from a care side and from an IT perspective. Great desire to contain and control OpEx going forward, and this again from a clinical side and from an IT perspective. And we're also seeing a great deal of time and energy devoted to mergers and acquisition activity. We've heard from customers that as much as 20 to 30% of senior IT time is being employed doing analysis to support mergers and acquisition activity. So to keep in mind that in all the things that we do in care organizations, at the end of the day, healthcare systems are responsible for the outcomes of the care and the satisfaction of the patients. So as the world evolves, and as IT evolves and the services we can deploy in IT evolve, we're going to be faced with important decisions, and it's going to be really important that we have the information at our disposal to make those decisions. And the most important one is going to be, as we manage the application lifecycle and deploy new applications and manage existing applications, we're going to be faced with decisions about where those applications are to go. Are they going to be deployed in a traditional fashion to our current on-premise infrastructure? Are they going to be deployed to cloud offerings, infrastructure as a service offerings, of which there are many to choose from? Or are we going to sidestep the infrastructure conversation altogether and simply start consuming our applications as software as a service applications? And the critical step, the critical piece of information that's missing from most of these conversations is an understanding of cost transparency that will allow us to effectively make this decision. And IT is going to find themselves under increasing pressure to make a determination and to defend their ability to continue to run applications on-premise. So what we need here is to provide cost transparency as part of this decision-making process so that the decision can be based on something real. And now we're not just talking about using cost solely as a decision-making criteria, because we should consider what are the attributes of these alternatives, these infrastructure as a service offerings and these software as a service offerings that are making them so attractive as competitors to traditional on-premise infrastructure. And they're things like self-service that affects our time to market, things like security, compliance, etc. So it's not going to solely based on cost, but the point is, if IT is not in a position to defend the costs of running infrastructure on-premise, they may find themselves not involved in the decision to go to pursue either infrastructure as a service models or software as a service models. So how we obtain this cost transparency is by making use of data that already exists in the environment. In healthcare, we find a great deal of virtualization, and we have a lot of information about shared resource consumption in the virtual center data set itself, about how all of those pooled resources are being consumed and used to deliver individual applications. We also have cost data from the general ledger. The general ledger contains all of the information about our capital costs and our operating costs, and there's a relatively standard set of accounts used in healthcare to track different cost elements within an organization. And then there's also some consumption data that we may want to get out of an electronic medical record system that tells us a little bit more about how some shared resources are being consumed. The challenge is taking all of this data and turning it into actionable information on a per application basis. And that's where our analytics solution comes in. So we take all of this information and we feed it in to infrastructure that can build cost models that will give us the cost of running individual applications on a per user basis to allow us to make decisions. So applications like the EMR on a per user basis. Again, taking into account all of the associated infrastructure costs, all of the overhead, all of the CapEx, all of the OpEx, et cetera. Things like mail, and so on, for all the applications in the healthcare system. If IT is empowered to understand the costs associated with delivering individual applications today, then they're in a great position to defend their competitive position relative to alternative infrastructure delivery methods going forward. So that when the business says we need to cut $30 million out of our operating budget next year, we're going to move EMR to a software as a service solution. IT is in a position to say, we know exactly what it costs to run that on premise, and we can compare that right away to our ability to the software as a service alternative and allow IT to make a decision.